We have your addresses and known your movements. Every one of you are legitimate targets as of today.
This new Irish Republican movement that they have going on right now. That they put a video, but I haven't seen it covered on CNN. I haven't heard it. I haven't seen it covered on any of the mainstream news stations. I haven't heard any of the radio talk show hosts talking about it. But I wanted
It was just something
to.
that was shared on X or something, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, so it's on Facebook. I've seen it on Facebook. I've seen it on X, but I've seen it on Instagram. But none of the news stations are talking about it, and I would like to maybe get some. We can talk through it after we watch the video. What we think about: is it legitimate? Is it not? What does it mean? Is it good? Is it bad? All that jazz. So,
To the people of Newry, Mourne and Down, we, the New Republican Movement, have watched their councillors and MLAs over the past 12 months. The level of disrespect shown to the people who put you into power, this cannot be ignored any longer. We are proud men of Ireland. We are patriots. Your policies and decision-making in regards to flooding our communities with undocumented military-aged men is not acceptable. We will not sit back any longer and watch our culture and religion destroyed by the people we put in power. Also, the sexual indoctrination of our children in schools has not went unnoticed either. The New Republican Movement will take immediate action against anyone who threatens our ways of life and the safety of our women and children. We have your addresses and known your movements. Every one of you are legitimate targets as of today. The New Republican Movement, the 28th of 11/25.
really interesting because it on several different levels, because it shows that what we have going on in the United States isn't different than what's going on in Europe and in other places where the conspiracy is, it really lays out that the fact that there is a conspiracy because everyone is facing the same problem of this flooding in of not just, illegal aliens, but refugees, and it's on purpose. They're bringing people in of different cultures, different languages, different values, in and displacing the native population, and that's not just in the United States, but we see it's happening in with this video. These guys are upset in Ireland. We see it happening in Scotland. We see it happening in England, Germany, France, Italy. I remember even going back to the early 2000s, where there was a guy in my local congregation that was from Italy, and he was talking about how Italians, because of their membership in the European Union, were dealing with this flood of I don't know if they were illegals, but this flood of immigrants that were
Yeah.
changing the culture there in Italy. And so, just like it's been a big deal in the United States for a long time, it's a big deal in other European countries, and in Europe as well. And so he talks
Well, let me
about,
talk about that real quick.
yeah,
Just because, like 15 or 20 years ago, my wife and I we were living in California. There was a popular radio host we used to listen to, whose name escapes me at the moment, but he would always talk about how what makes a country is borders, language, and culture.
yeah,
Borders, language, and culture. And so when you've got everybody crossing the borders, and then they're all using all these other languages, and then it becomes a mishmash and the culture gets lost, then basically what you've done is open the doors for global government, right?
yeah,
Which is the goal. You and I understand that's really the purpose
absolutely.
of this anyways.
Well, this is just destroy the population so they can do that, because they understood if you had a cohesive culture that they wouldn't be able to do that. But they can just they as we talked about in our Pilgrim episode last week, it's you destroy a culture, you destroy a people and their liberty by destroying their cultural cohesiveness, and it's the multiculturalism, and it's this melting pot attitude that is actually what destroys a people and their liberty.
Yeah, we also mentioned the Hegelian dialectic, right?
Yeah,
So they cause a problem that people are going to have a normal reaction to, right? They've got these people are being raped, or kids are being threatened and whatever, right?
Yeah.
Or groomed, like they were talking about in the video.
Yeah.
And so anybody in their right mind is going to have a negative reaction to that, right? And so that gives them the excuse to send in the UN troops or whatever they want to do, right?
Right. Well, I remember was it in Scotland just like a couple months ago, there was that story of that little girl. She was like, what, 11, 12, something like that, where she
there were the two girls.
Yeah, she had this knife, and she was, threatening these guys that were creepers on her sister. And did the creepers get in trouble? An axe. An axe. Yeah, a hatchet. Mm-hmm. And so, what was it? Was it the creepers that got in trouble? No, it was the girl defending her sister or her friend. And so it's just, it's insanity of how we have this consistent movement all over the Western world, really. And what it's trying to do to us. And he gets into that part of it, and then these guys get into also how the perversion, the perverting of the children was a big issue with him as well. And that's so again, that sounds like something that happened in the United States, and it's not just something that's just happening over in Europe, but this trying to indoctrinate kids with the sodomite supremacy movement, with the trannies, all that kind of stuff, is not just happening with sex ed, all of those things that are not just in the United States, but in other Western nations as well.
Yeah, the propaganda and everything else as well.
Yep.
So what were your feelings on this then? Because I know that we live in a day when it's really hard to tell what's legit and what's not.
Yeah.
Right? So we see videos like this, and it kind of looks like what you would expect, because it's kind of like what we've seen in Hollywood films, where there's groups like this. They always show these kind of groups, and they're always terrorists or whatever, but they come out with these kind of videos. And I know you had done a little bit of research trying to figure out if it was legitimate or not. Maybe you could talk a little bit about what you came across, what you discovered.
Yeah. Well, maybe before we get to that, let's talk about the legitimacy of what they're saying. Is what they're saying a legitimate response to what the government's doing? And so we see this all the time. Every time that there's something that happens, you have Republicans and Democrats unified in a single message of condemning political violence. So before we get to the historical aspect, I want to look at the modern aspect. What are some of our favorite movies, and what do they say, or what do they portray about political violence? Let's, Star Wars, for example. Who's the hero in that? We have Luke Skywalker, and what does he do at the end of the movie? He blows up the Death Star. He blows up a base, a military base, which would be considered, well, if somebody were to do that today, that would be considered political violence, and it would be. And
they're rebels, right?
They're rebels.
They're rebelling against the government,
right? It would be seen as treason because can you imagine somebody going out and doing the same thing that Luke Skywalker did to the Death Star, if they did the same thing to a military base in a state, right?
I was also thinking about Braveheart as well. You and I.
Well, yeah, that was just one movie, but yeah, another Braveheart, political violence. What is Braveheart? What is William Wallace and all of his guys doing? They're engaging in political violence.
And that one. One thing to think about there too is that that's a historical event, right?
Right.
Being portrayed by Hollywood, but it's a historical event, and they got to a point where they felt like there was no other recourse.
Right.
The leaders were coming in and asserting sexual rights over their women and all these kind of things.
Right.
And their voices weren't being heard, and there was no other way left for them to actually get representation.
They're going to write a sternly written letter to Longshanks, or get the courts to rule. Even though this isn't historically accurate, right? The examples that were given in the movie, none of those things would have gone to some court, and the courts would be like, yeah, your rights are violated. You can't do that anymore.
Yeah, we'll tell the king not to do this, right? Sure. Yeah, that's how it works.
And so they're
Well,
seen
my point
as.
of bringing it up.
Sorry,
No,
go ahead.
my point of bringing it up is that I feel like you're saying let's talk about the message, right?
Right.
Whether or not this video is legitimate, let's talk about the message.
Right.
And I feel like
Is the message legitimate? Yeah.
yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I feel like if you consider it from this perspective, whether or not somebody would feel like they had a legitimate right to go to this extreme,
Right.
or that they were backed into a corner. That's kind of what I was saying about the Scottish, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Backed into a corner, and there's nothing else left that we can do.
Yeah.
And so I feel like, as far as the message goes, I feel like that resonates with a lot of people because we live in a day where we are so controlled. And like you mentioned earlier with the story with the little girls, just trying to defend themselves. You know what happened here as well. Several years back, there was Kyle, whatever his name was. I think what is that young kid who went out when there
Kyle
was all
Rittenhouse.
Kyle Rittenhouse, when there was all the rampaging and rioting, and he's out there trying to defend people, and then he was the one that was raked over the coals and vilified in the media, right?
Yeah.
So common sense does not rule in the day that we live in.
Right.
That's a problem, I think, and people for that reason really resonate with a message like what you were showing in the video there.
Yeah. Well, that's what, like, and that was kind of my point, is we see this complete opposite perspective of what we cheer for in the movies with Star Wars, with Braveheart, with the Hunger Games. You just, just think of all the movies where we have these heroes fighting back against oppression, and, they're engaging in political violence. And are those movies condemned? Or do we go through and say, you know what, Luke Skywalker should have worked a little bit harder to make a difference in changing the culture to make sure that the Emperor wasn't as tyrannical as he was? Or do we say that William Wallace?
The Empirical Peace Council.
Right, yeah. I mean, none of these examples where the hero is engaging in political violence do we say, man, that's just not good of what William Wallace did. He shouldn't have done that. Right. Or Candace in the Hunger Games, or whatever the movie is. It's the hero is the individual engaging in political violence. So why do we make heroes out of people engaged in political violence, but then when it happens in real life, we then condemn it? It's, is it because we don't like what the violence is being used on? Is it because we don't agree that it is a legitimate use of violence in that case? Or are we just brainwashed to say that's for movies, or that's for the past, that's for the founding fathers, or.
Well, we're being propagandized, number one. I mean, I don't know. We haven't really touched on it here, but so many news stories lately within just the past couple of weeks have had that message, right?
Right.
And they're Obama and all these people coming out tweeting everywhere. We condemn political violence. It's never okay.
Right.
Which is nonsense, right? Historically, we know that's nonsense because the founding fathers.
If we say it's never okay, that means we condemn the founding fathers. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's never okay. No, what's not okay is everything that's going on right now, right? and we're kind of backed into a corner, like I said earlier,
right, where
and you got to remember, who is it that the propaganda is coming from? Who's funding it and who's spouting it?
Right.
It's the elite that are that the message comes from, and it's coming down to us through their talking heads in the media, through the news and whatever, right?
Right.
So we have to keep that in mind as well.
But when it comes to actual individuals engaging in it today, we say, wait, no, hold on a second. I didn't. That's all nice and dandy in theory, but let's not actually take these things seriously. Let's not actually have the founding fathers be an example for us to follow. That's crazy talk.
Yeah. And I wanted to mention too, I don't want to go heavily into it because I know we've got other articles that we want to get to here tonight. Mm-hmm. But I do just want to mention real quick, like during COVID or back during Hurricane Katrina, the way the governments worked in cahoots with the religious leaders to push the propaganda exactly that we're talking about here. It's never okay to resist. You always just do whatever the government tells you. Like I said, we heard that during COVID. It was during Hurricane Katrina, and we've heard it other times as well. But those are two big ones that stand out in my mind, where the government was used by, or the religion was used by the government to try and brainwash people to tell them it's not okay to ever resist or stand up for yourselves.
Yeah.
Well, one of the examples from Hurricane Katrina was an old lady who stayed in her house. They told everybody to evacuate, and she said, "No, I'm old. Number one, I'm not going to make it to wherever your place is.
Right.
But number two, I got to protect all my animals and my stuff here." So she was just sitting in her house with her shotgun or whatever, and they sent a SWAT team in, or whatever it was, the military or whatever that was there, and they took her down. She was just sitting in her own house defending her stuff, or, holding the gun just in case somebody tried to break in or whatever.
Right.
What was she doing that was violating the law, right? There was nothing except that they put her under, I think they had it under martial law, didn't they, in that area?
Yeah.
So they claimed it gave them an excuse to take away everybody's rights, which never can happen, number one.
Right.
But yeah, it was an old lady. I remember reading that story about how they broke in, just like in the movies, broke in the windows, ran in, tackled her on the ground and all this crap. Yeah. And it was just an old lady with a gun, not threatening anybody, not committing a crime, just sitting around
on her house,
watching her cat,
her property.
Yeah, this is where I live. I'm not going to leave, and people should have that right.
Yeah. Well, they
and if she dies there, then fine, that's your choice.
That they shouldn't have that right violated is.
That's what I mean. Yeah. Exactly right.
So so is this an example of legitimacy, of a legitimate video, or is the government actually going in and saying that, making this video to try and entrap people, to get them to engage in behaviors so that they can identify who they are and then arrest them, so they can silence anybody that opposes this movement? And so that kind of a thing happens regularly. So is that the case here, is the question. And I've got these two different thoughts going through my head. Of one side saying it might be fake, and on the other side I'm saying, well, it might be real. Because and
you want to lean into that one too. You want to believe it's real because you totally believe in the message, like we just talked about.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. You're always like we see these examples of these hero dads that they gun down the guy that the pedophile that raped their kid. Or a recent news story that I shared on my own Facebook wall was about a dad that threatened a drug dealer with a gun. Said, "Hey, you better not do that anymore," because he had sold drugs to his kid. And so as a father, you're like, yeah, this guy's a hero because he stood up for his children. And so, when we see these things happening, we're like always standing up for them. And so, yeah, like you said, we want it to be we want to see people standing up for what's right. And so we're like, hey, on one side is, hey, it's great that these guys are doing this. So, and then the other thing that makes me think it could be real is because of what I said when we first started out. Nobody's talking about this on CNN. Nobody's talking about this on Fox News. Glenn Beck's not talking about it. Sean Hannity's not talking about it. The typical conspiracy controlled media hasn't said boo. And when you can tell that it's controlled. It's a controlled message because the conspiracy's talking about it all the time. Mm-hmm. And so that
as a general principle.
As a general principle, right? They ignore what they don't want you to know about, and they beat to death the story that they want you to care about and to buy into the narrative that they're trying to push forward. That's a general rule.
Which is why we've heard political violence is bad so many times in the past couple of weeks, like I was saying, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's an example right there. This is the conspiracy approved message. Political violence bad. So you hear it over and over and over, often in identical words from different people that are part of it, part of the conspiracy. So
yep, precisely. So on the other hand, though, why am I suspicious that this might be a fake story? Is that I can't find an original video. All of a sudden, there's no. I mean, and to be fair, if you're the new Republican movement in Ireland, you're not going to have a Twitter account or an X account or a Facebook account where you post this kind of video of you saying that government officials are legitimate targets. So fair enough.
Well, QAnon does.
QAnon, sure, or yeah. Well, Exactly. I think that leads into my point.
Exactly.
Is that so fair enough, but how do you get that message out? How did this video all of a sudden get out with no original source? Where did the people originally, before they started grabbing it from other channels and sharing it on their own, where did it come from? I can't find anywhere. So, our listeners, our great fan here that's joining us tonight, if you know, put that in the chat, or if you're watching this afterwards in the replay, and if you know where it originally came from, I'd love to hear, because I've been digging for the last 24 hours trying to find the original source, where the first person that then shared it from, where did they get it from? Because everything that I've seen is all just people downloading it and then putting it on their own channel. And so that to me is suspicious, because how is this private, if it's a legitimate resistance where they're saying we're fed up and we're not going to put up with it anymore, how did they set up this network that nobody's ratting them out, but they're all willing to share the video? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's really strange. Yeah, no, it's just really strange. Yeah, I agree. Now, I mean, one thing you might consider, that if we're going back to the Hollywood example again, which again is kind of why a red flag to me, just because of there's kind of a Hollywood feel to some of this. And I'm open to it being real, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But the Hollywood red flag to me, what they would do in the movies would be, somebody secretly dropped it off or sent it to a news agency or something, right? But that's the kind of thing. But to your point, that would be the source, though, right? You'd track it back to that, to the Irish news station that said, "Hey, somebody gave us this video, and now we're sharing it with the world for some reason," right?
Yeah.
But I don't know why you would do that, right? And why would they share it? That's giving them the audience, just handing it to them on a platter.
Right. I mean,
so
none of it makes any sense. News story, but if you or I were to do this, what would happen, in my opinion? Like if we were to go to our local network affiliate and drop off a video of us in a mask and gloves and holding our AR-15s, and we drop off this video saying the same thing to our local affiliate, they are going to immediately call, the FBI, and
yeah,
and they're going to find out.
Get fingerprinted, and you're going to get tracked.
Right. There's going to be something that happens. There's going to be an investigation that begins, right, and whatnot. But are they going to show the video? I think they're not, because it's not something that they created. And so they're not going to want to promote it and give it the free advertising. And so,
well, they're controlled, like we talked about earlier.
Exactly.
And that's obviously, if we were doing it, it's obviously not a conspiracy approved message, right? So they're not giving us airtime.
Right. And so it would simply go, it would be an invisible action that nobody ever actually found out about, because nobody aired it on television. And so that's one of the things that say, okay, is this legitimate? How did it get out there? If it is legitimate, how did it get out there with no original source? But at the same time, nobody's talking about it. And so that seems like that gives it credence and legitimacy. So if anybody watching this has any thoughts, any additional things to consider, or an original source of where it came from and how it started to get out there, I'd love to hear it. Put it in the comments. Also, if you're from Ireland and you know about this movement, you got some background and whatnot, and you're, I wouldn't want you to confess that you are part of this movement, but you're like, I've got a cousin that is a part of it, and he's told me X, Y, Z. Hey, I'd love to interview you as well. I think that'd be really cool to get a local perspective of what's going on.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point, because we're all the way across the pond, so to speak.
Yeah.
And we're so far away that's a thing that we wouldn't know anything about. So
exactly.
If it's a legit group that the people there know about, that's something we would want to know for sure.